Okay, folks. We know Pat Narduzzi would win the Big Ten this year. He's made that very clear. Pat Narduzzi would certainly win the Big Ten. But fortunately for Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, the whole 14 of them, they don't have to deal with Pat Narduzzi here in 2022. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. We break down the game we all love each and every day with you. Best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football, thanks to you and your participation. Thanks for hanging on here. A little bit late. We got our West Virginia show start late, end late. Here we are to talk Big Ten football. This is our Big Ten preview call-in show. So I will drop the link in the chat. Should have dropped it in the description section. I know, but I'll drop it in the chat. It'll be all over the place because we're simulcasting on a bevy Big Ten network level simulcast here. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa, and of course on the main channel as well. So let's get the link to all of you as soon as possible. I may actually kick back, possibly, and do what I see a lot of others do and put up the full screen and just kick back and talk to all of you. But we'll see. Taking your calls, and you've got the link right there in the live chat. Okay. Amazon link in the description section of all the videos. If you shop on Amazon, you know what I should say when you shop on Amazon, because about half of America does every month. Give me just a couple bucks out of the 1.6 trillion that Amazon's worth. Kick a few to the Voice of College Football. We would appreciate it. Put the link somewhere where you will remember it. You can write for us, voiceofcollegefootball.com. Go to the top of the screen, write for us, voiceofcollegefootball.com. Discord, we'll talk a little bit more about Discord, but it's a chat all the time. It's just like the chat that we've got right here, but it goes on 24/7, 365 all the time. College football talk. Our 24-hour marathon is only less than 3 weeks away. Less than 3 weeks away from our 24-hour marathon. And we've got a couple interesting additions to the Voice of College Football delivery. Our content delivery, couple interesting ones coming your way very soon. Yes. And we will be announcing those very soon. Yes. All right. Let me take a quick rundown at the Big Ten, just give you a framework on what the conference looks like this year. Let's start in the Big Ten Eastern Division. Indiana, big season 3 years ago under Tom Allen. 8-5, barely lost a bowl game to Tennessee 23-22. They had all the momentum going into 2020. They looked great. Michael Penix at quarterback, and almost upset Ohio State at the shoe in the COVID season. Almost made the Big Ten championship game, finished at 6-2, top 15 in the nation. Fell flat on their face. Indiana, with its highest ranking in some 45 or 50 years, preseason last year, goes 2-10, winless in the Big Ten. Exit Michael Penix, the lefty, to Washington. Bring in Connor Baslick. High completion percentage, Connor Baslick. Throws picks, though. Not an impressive TD to interception ratio for Connor Baslick. Top 3 wide receivers, top 3 running backs for Indiana, gone. Sean Shivers from Auburn, the transfer portal addition, should be the number 1 running back. 7 starters back on defense, but Micah McPadden is not one of them for Indiana. Rutgers, 3-way quarterback battle. Does it go to the veteran Noah Vedral? 5 of their 7 top tacklers back at Rutgers. Greg Schiano knows what he's doing, knows how to build a decent football program. He's done it already at Rutgers in the Big East in the 2000s. He's got more work to do, of course, there. Maryland, maybe the best passing attack in the Big Ten outside of Columbus, possibly, of course, Talia Tagovailoa, throwing 26 touchdowns last year. Raheem Jarrett's back. Damon Demas, who was injured early in the season against Iowa, he's back. One of the best wide receiver tandems in the Big Ten. Possibly the best offensive line that Mike Locksley has had at Maryland. 94 starts on this offensive line coming back from Maryland. The defense brings back 7 starters. That's always the issue with Maryland, depth and defense. Michigan State, Mel Tucker, what a year they had there in East Lansing. 11-2, top 10 in the nation. Peyton Thorne's back. He's got a 3-headed committee at running back trying to replace one of the best in the nation, Kenneth Walker Jr., Kenneth Walker III, I believe. Jalen Berger, Elijah Collins, Jarek Broussard, the transfer coming in, running back by committee. Of course, Jaden Reed, one of the best in the conference, 59 catches, 10 touchdowns. Sparty should be tough, but 11 wins is going to be difficult. 7 of their top 8 tacklers are back on defense. Penn State, 11-11 the past 2 years under James Franklin. That is not going to get it done. They did back up the Brinks truck into James Franklin's driveway. He is set for life. 9 or 10-year contract. Of course, Sean Clifford's back for an umpteenth season and will set all sorts of passing records. The offensive line has been the trouble spot with Penn State. Staying healthy, offensive line. The run game was one of the worst in college football. That should not be the case. Defense lost a ton of tremendous talent. 5 players drafted off that Penn State defense last year, but they bring back guys like Ajir Brown and Joey Porter. Penn State's loaded. They've got talent. Can they pull it together? Can James Franklin coach them up on Saturday? Michigan, it's J.J. McCarthy against Cade McNamara. It's the Big Ten championship quarterback against the 5-star. Who wins the battle? Who should win the battle? Tons of leaders gone off this Michigan team that won the Big Ten championship for the first time in 17 years. Aiden Hutchinson, of course. We know he can do Michael Jackson. What will he do with the Lions? We don't know, but he was one of the best sackmen in college football and a leader, the vocal leader on this team. David Ajabo, the bookend, he's gone after he had 11 or 12 sacks last year. Daxton Hill, one of the more versatile players on defense in the Big Ten, gone. Hassan Haskins gone, their 1,000-yard back, the guy that got the tough yardage. Now, they're going to replace him with Donovan Edwards, and of course, Blake Corum's one of the best backs in the country, so they're set there. The wide receiver room at Michigan is the deepest, most talented they've had since the Braylon Edwards, Steve Preston days of 04, 03, 04, 05, in that range. Michigan coming back with a Big Ten title, of course. Ohio State. Yes, I guess we should mention the Buckeyes, right? Big Ten championship race. Possibly they might be able to factor in C.J. Stroud, Heisman runner-up, 44 TDs, Trey Henderson. Ohio State was 3rd in the nation in yards per carry last year. And you know what? They need to be better in the ground game. When it counts, Trey Henderson, Mayan Williams, Proctor may get some work, or Evan Pryor may get some work as well. The offensive line loaded with talent, but again, pushed around by Michigan. I am really anxious to see Jim Knowles' defense. Tanner McAllister coming in from Oklahoma State to help teach that defense as a second-team All-Big 12 player. 3 5-stars on the Ohio State defensive line. 1 a veteran, Zach Harrison. He's going to get drafted high. JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer. If those guys live anywhere close to their expectations as 5-stars, Ohio State could have a wrecking crew, front 4 on defense. All right, to the Big Ten West. Iowa won it last year, 10-4. They won it with a 123rd ranked offense in the country. And they're going to bring back their 2 quarterbacks, Alex Padilla and, of course, Spencer Petras. The wide receiver course thin. Jack Campbell's one of the best players at linebacker in the country, racked up 143 tackles. Gavin Williams and the other Williams will be the go-to guys on offense. We got to see them featured at the Citrus Bowl in the narrow loss against Kentucky. How about Minnesota? Tanner Morgan had a breakout season in 2019. That seemed like a long time ago. 30 touchdowns, 7 picks, because he hasn't even thrown anywhere close to 30 touchdowns in almost 2 seasons since then. But he's got his old offensive coordinator back from that 2019 season. Kirk Shiraka back as OC from Penn State. The offensive line, though, I have issues with at Minnesota. They were tremendous last year, but they lost almost everyone, excluding their all Big Ten center. Mo Ibrahim, let's hope that he stays healthy for his season. The defense, not a whole lot of people recognized this. Minnesota had one of the best defenses in the country last year. They bring back 3 of their 4 top tacklers. Wisconsin, Graham Mertz finally has to live up to some of his billing. 10 TDs and 11 picks will not get it done. Braylon Allen, one of the best backs in the nation, was a baby when the season started, but he grew up quickly. Chez Malusi's his backup. Of course, he was the starter before he got hurt, and Braylon Allen became a star. The top 3 wide receivers for Wisconsin gone. A ton of defense gone for Wisconsin, but they always figure it out under Jim Leonhard. Check out Wisconsin year to year. I don't know that this gets recognized like it does at places like Alabama and Georgia, Clemson recently, but Wisconsin always brings one of the best defenses in all of college football every year, especially in the front 7. Purdue, they're fun to watch. Aiden O'Connell, 28 touchdown passes last year, threw for a zillion yards. They upset Michigan State. They beat Iowa. They won a thriller against Tennessee in bowl season. David Bell's gone. Milton Wright's gone. Jackson Anthrop gone. Their best receivers gone. And they got to run the ball better. Purdue, though, could be a dark horse in the Big Ten Western Division. Nebraska. What do we say about Nebraska? It's crazy how bad Nebraska deals with game situations, game management, clock management, just fundamentals, techniques. It's all collapsed under Scott Frost. This team was that close to beating 4 teams ranked in the top 10 last year. But we know the story. We've covered it a zillion times here. I'm not going to break it down. But will Nebraska take off? That Nebraska potential that we see, the team that plays for 55 minutes against Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Oklahoma, will they keep that going? Because they had the best transfer portal season of anybody in the Big Ten, headlined by Casey Thompson, of course, Trey Palmer, and others. O'Shawn Mathis on the defense from TCU at defensive end. Nebraska, head scratcher. Garrett Nelson, probably the best player on defense, could be a monster this year with 5 starters back on D. Illinois, Brandon Peters, Artur Sikowski battle for the quarterback spot. Chase Brown and Josh McCrary, probably one of the better running back tandems that you have yet to know about. Because who watches Illinois football? They're coming off 5-7, but consider Illinois beat Nebraska, Minnesota, and Penn State last year. Really good first outing for Brett Bielema, but the recruiting has to get better at Illinois. They had a bad recruiting season this past year. And then finally, Northwestern. Pat Fitzgerald might be the best coach in the Big Ten, maybe. But he's dealing with a down cycle. Usually it only happens once every 4 or 5 years for Northwestern, but this looks like it's going to be a 3rd time in 5 years. Ryan Helinski most likely will win the quarterback job. He, of course, engineered a win over a top 5 Georgia team back in 2019. Evan Hull, one of the best running backs in the Big Ten, 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. Malik Washington's back with 44 catches. Northwestern's one of their best linebackers, Blake Gallagher, also back, 89 total tackles. Let's get to the phone lines here at the Voice of College Football. Let's talk up the Big Ten. You can call me about anything concerning college football, but of course, we have highlighted this week as our Power 5 preview week. And the Big Ten is front and center tonight. Let's go to the phone lines here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
All right. Hello, sir.
How you doing there?
I'm good, sir. How about yourself?
I'm doing just fine. Who am I talking to?
You're talking to Aiden. School just started for me, and I just woke up from a nap from the basement, and I'm ready to talk some college football.
I love it. Let's do it.
So want to get your thoughts on this first, but I think Wisconsin struggles to make a bowl game.
Okay.
And the reason why I think that is because I don't like Graham Mertz, and I hate their receivers even more.
I can't argue that. Keep going.
And I'm personally a big believer in that you need to have a quarterback to be successful in college football. So I think that just Graham Mertz and the receivers that they have just scares me a little bit.
Okay. Why is this different than any other Wisconsin team that wins 9 or 10 games like they do every year?
Because I mean, their top returning receiver had like 30 catches. So
Oh, I understand what you're saying. But in terms of the quarterback position in particular, and even wide receiver, when do they usually? Danny Davis was a good one. They've had other ones, of course, recently. Actually, they typically deliver the NFL tight end, but not at wide receiver. And again, the quarterback play post Russell Wilson has never been good. In Wisconsin, you can always chalk them up for 9-3 or 10-2.
I also think that the Big Ten overall has gotten so much better as well. Like, Purdue could be a dark horse. Maryland could win 8, 9, 10 games. Nebraska brings in like that transfer class as well.
Okay, so you don't like Wisconsin to make a bowl game?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Anything else for us?
And I am shitting my pants on how good Ohio State can be, honestly.
Well, okay. Well, fortunately, we don't get to have to see that, but sure.
No, I'm not actually doing that.
Are you a Buckeyes fan?
I'm actually a Michigan man.
Oh, okay.
But I do live 20 minutes away from the shoe, so yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, man.
Call us anytime.
All right. Thank you.
Well, we had a line of calls there, and then I decide to move on to these other calls. They just dropped. All right. When you do enter the call-in system, please let us know where you're calling from, who you are. So just leave that in the chat, in the private chat there, so we can build a banner, so we can highlight, hey, you're Jim from Youngstown. All right, let's get to the comments here at the Voice of College Football. And of course, we're going to have our predictions here, not tonight, but soon. The predictions are coming. In what form? I don't know. Don't know exactly what form the predictions are coming. We may do a big prediction show. We've done that in the past. Big prediction show 2 or 3 nights before the season starts, or I may continue to deliver them. I delivered the Clemson prediction, preview, and prediction. Enjoy that one. All right, we've got a prediction coming in here from McD Sports, 8-4 Maryland. Well, I got to say that doesn't surprise me. So McD's typically about 2 games high on Maryland. So this is almost a lock for Maryland to go 6-6. All right. I'm dropping the link one more time in the chat. We got Wes on the line. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Wes, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing, Mark?
I am doing great. What's going on?
So I'm a Penn State fan. So if we can start off with that, I think they've got some good units, like their defensive secondary. I think the running backs are going to be good. Defensive line, maybe. Do you have any thoughts on any other potential solid units there?
Yeah, so PJ Mustipher coming back.
He is coming back, yeah.
Be there for full season. He could be special. Man, your defense last year,
It was solid.
oh, from a talent standpoint, so
It
it
was
didn't only
really
play
yeah.
up to its capabilities, but from the standpoint of, I thought athletically and in terms of talent, that was the best defense in the Big Ten.
What do you think about Manny Diaz as it coming as a coordinator?
He has extensive experience at big schools in various conferences, and for some reason James Franklin made note of that the other day, that was important to him. But his results as a defensive coordinator have been good, but they've been spotty. They haven't been exceptional.
I agree. And I have one last question for you before I jump off here. I know you're a Buckeye fan. You've got the Buckeyes have like 3 preseason Heisman watch people on there. Do you really think there's anyone in the Big Ten that can compete with Ohio State this year?
Oh, I certainly do.
Okay.
I don't think it's a given that they win the Big Ten.
What do you think? Who do you think can push them?
Well, on a given day, Penn State's probably the best team to take them down, especially considering where the game is in the Big Ten.
Okay. I just don't see them.
I understand that, but we're talking
Struggling,
about a given Saturday. We're not talking about them
Yes,
playing 10
yes.
times.
Yes.
And you know, as well as I do, that nobody has played Ohio State tougher than Penn State in the Big Ten.
Correct. But Ohio State wins more than they loses, even against.
Sure, they haven't lost in 16, but every game, this Penn State team last year, I think Penn State was the most underachieving team in the country last year.
I probably agree with you for whatever reason. Well, I know I have a reason. And I'll ask you another question.
Yeah.
Which would be their head coach.
Yeah. Thoughts
on Mr. Franklin?
He's a tough one for me to judge because,
I agree.
You know, I like to take it back to the beginning of his Penn State career. Of course, we know what he did at Vanderbilt, which is near miracle status, going 9-4, 2 consecutive years at Vandy. He comes to Penn State, and as you well know, he was 2+ years into his tenure, 7-6, 7-6, and off to a rough start. 1-2, I think, year 3. And I thought Bill O'Brien did a remarkable job. You know, we don't need to dig up the past in regards to what that all was, but
I agree with you.
I thought, who in the world is going to that has any football ability that can go to an upper echelon Big Ten school is going to go to Penn State and not play in a bowl game and scholarship reductions and all that. Now, the NCAA did curb some of that back to help them out.
Right.
But, you know, Bill O'Brien really set them up for years in advance, that I thought that they were taking 6-7 years off, that we weren't going to hear from Penn State for a long time. And James Franklin comes in and underachieves. And then, of course, they had the miracle turnaround in 16 and they ride it. And 16, 17, 18, 19, you're talking about a top 10 team.
Yeah. Good season, like good to great seasons.
And really only Ohio State in their way.
Yeah.
And double-digit leads blown in the fourth quarter against Ohio State, or else Penn State's playing in probably not getting to a playoff, but playing in the Big Ten championship game. They're winning the divisions. They were that. I think this gets lost now because it's been a few years, but they were that close to repping the East in the Big Ten championship game multiple times.
Exactly. So it's tough for me being a Penn State fan. And I like Franklin as a recruiter, kind of as an ambassador, those type of things. But looking at some of the other just results on the field, it's tough.
Yeah, so you make a great point, because maybe and I'm not saying this specifically about James Franklin because I don't know the man, but of course he has a sizable ego. And I don't say that in a negative way. If you reach that kind of status and you're a
You
top
have to.
coach
You
in the
have
league,
to.
yeah, so I think maybe that gets in the way of analyzing and being self-aware to say, this is what I do really well. Maybe I need some help here. Maybe I need some game management help.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we'll see how he does this year. Apparently he's trying some new things. We'll see.
But Wes, to my point about the Ohio State matchup, even this past season, for as lousy as Penn State was record-wise, they go to Columbus. They lose a hard-fought 9-point game. There's a scoop and score for Ohio State. That's kind of a flukish kind of play.
Sure.
Penn State's right in it, and your run game has to be better. It's almost impossible for it to be any worse.
Right. There's a couple freshman running backs that are supposed to be very good. We'll see how they work into it. But you're right. There's like 3.5 yards per carry or something like that. And it's not cutting it. Not cutting it. So all right. No, I appreciate
the boys. I know
What's
it
that?
doesn't seem, I said, don't give up on your boys. I know it doesn't seem like the teams and the programs this is a year to cycle up.
Oh,
Seems like
no. I'm not
away.
giving up on them. Don't get me wrong. I'm just being a little real.
Sure. Absolutely.
All right. I appreciate your time, Mark. You have yourself a good evening.
Thanks, Wes. Appreciate you being here.
Yep.
Let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football, highlighting the Big Ten tonight. We got Carl on the line from Nebraska. Carl.
Mark, can you hear me?
I got you.
How are you?
I'm doing well. What's going on tonight? Hey, Carl. Are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, sorry about that.
No problem. What's up?
Got a few questions for you. I'm actually in Oklahoma, by the way. I don't know why it's showing up in Nebraska.
Oh, it's not NE.
Oh, that's weird. But no, I got a few questions for you. I've only called like one time or twice on this show, so kind of new to it. But no, I'm a big Michigan fan, and I got a few questions concerning Michigan this year, and I want to know your thoughts.
Okay.
One of them is what I was watching you on Michigan podcast. This is a couple weeks back, but Steve Dace asked you if you would take the over or under on Michigan's 9.5 win total this year, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said the under. And I'm curious to why.
Well, it is a tough number to play. At least it is for me at 9.5, because you're looking at 9-3 or 10-2. That's your decision right there. And I know that the non-conference is 3 gimme wins. Let's see, a date at Iowa, Illinois, and Nebraska. I think those are the 3 Western Division opponents, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, lose to Ohio State, lose to either Michigan State, Penn State, or I'm not going to take this out of consideration. I know people are going to go crazy as soon as I mention this. Maryland's a bit of a wild card. So there are upsets out there.
Absolutely.
And then a trip to Iowa. And again, you know, we'll throw Michigan State, Penn State, Maryland, and Nebraska into a barrel for a loss, possibly.
Okay. So
he hits me with these questions, and I'm like, that was not an easy call for me to make. So I'm not sold that Michigan's going to lose 3 games, but that's
Absolutely.
what I pulled the trigger on
Absolutely.
But
I
my
see.
prediction's coming.
Yeah, no, I absolutely see. I agree with you. I think the main upset alert is definitely at Iowa. We haven't won there. I think we've lost 4 consecutive games at Iowa, if I'm not mistaken. So Kinnick Stadium has not been kind to Michigan. As other than that, though, I mean, obviously Ohio State, that's on a different plane. I think Nebraska could be a challenge, but considering we have them at home, and then Michigan State, they're actually talking about that being a night game, and I'm not. That hasn't been confirmed yet. But if that's a night game, I don't see Michigan State coming out of that with a W.
Well, I think Michigan State, correct me if I'm wrong, it might have been a 3:30 game. I think it was a 3:30 game. Of course, we know what happened in 2015 at the Big House in what at that point was a 7:30 game or conclusion to a game. So I think we get caught up a little bit too much in where the game's played. I really do. And whether it's at night. I would love to have somebody run the metrics on that. Of course, that's way beyond me and nobody's going to do it. But I think those things are to be considered. We know that there is home field advantage. It does exist in sports and especially college football, but I think it's a bit overblown. Like most predictions you see, like if you look at predictions that people make out there, from the ones that I see from time to time that go game by game, if it's a flip of the coin, it's always, well, they're on the road, they're going to lose that game.
Right.
And that's not the case.
No, not at all. But I mean, and I'm not taking anything away from MSU. I think what Mel Tucker has done there is phenomenal. And frankly, being from Michigan, as I've said before, when we're not playing them, I'll root for Michigan State. It's a state of Michigan type thing. But I'm not sure that Mel Tucker can win the transfer portal like he did last year with Kenneth Walker. And that's, I mean, really, that was the main ingredient for his win against Michigan last year. Was his star running back.
Yeah, all credit goes to Michigan State, of course, for winning that game down 16. But man, yeah, they did thread a needle with, first of all, they had the best back that they've had since fill in the blank, Lorenzo White, whomever it was, one of their best backs in history, maybe the best running back for one season in the history of the school. But you know how many fourth down ridiculous throws Peyton Thorne pulled off. Now, again, all credit. But if they don't hit on one of those, they probably lose the game.
Sure.
So it was a magical comeback, one of those momentum swings that went the other way and just, turned the tide of the game. And it just was one of those special efforts.
Sure. So my next question to you, I don't know. Have you been watching the Big Ten bus tour, or the Big Ten Network bus tour at all? Have you been following that?
Yeah, I've seen some of it.
Okay. So CJ Stroud, I like to call him Coldred Stroud because, we got to give him the that name. But
what are we calling him?
Well, his name is Coldridge Stroud.
I didn't know that.
So that's a different name. So Michigan fans take advantage of that. No, but if you paid attention on the bus tour, he had an interview and he said that the only time that Ohio State loses is when they beat themselves.
I heard that. So
I'm sure that caught attention to a lot of Buckeye and Wolverine fans. Do you feel that way as well? I don't know. I feel like Oregon last year, maybe they beat themselves, but I don't think they beat themselves against Michigan. I think Michigan just straight up dominated them on the in the trenches, and not to mention the games that they did win, especially against lower tier teams like was it Tulsa or Tulane? I get the two.
Tulsa.
It was Tulsa. Okay. They played a really close game against Tulsa. They played a really close game against Maryland up until the fourth quarter. And then they had a really close one against Nebraska. But then again,
you're not – Maryland wasn't the one.
Was it not Maryland?
No, they put up 66 points. They just obliterated Maryland. Nebraska, 26-17. I don't know what other game you're thinking of. Let me think. That was pretty much – they pretty much pasted everybody else.
Okay. All right. I have that wrong.
Regardless.
But I mean, how do you feel about that comment?
Penn State was a close game.
Penn State was a close game, yeah.
Like on one hand, I can appreciate his confidence to basically say, we can beat anybody in the country. We should beat everybody in the country. We believe we're the best team in the country. Therefore, as long as we do what we do, nobody's going to beat us. But this is coming off a year in which they lost 2 games. And, even if they would have turned the ball over 6 times in those games and just everybody agreed, okay, they beat themselves. You know what? You didn't win the game. You didn't I hate to hear that. I hate to hear that type of comment. And I also hate to hear the, we were at a bowl game. We didn't want to be there. That's why we lost. You know what? Shut up. Be a competitor. You got a game to play. Win the game.
That was another thing too. I mean, what about Ryan Day's remark about, well, we got to the Rose Bowl, but that wasn't good enough. I mean, to the Big Ten, isn't the Rose Bowl supposed to, I mean, I know it's a different era of college football now, but historically the Rose Bowl was the pinnacle, so
those were under different circumstances, as you just pointed out. Up until 1998, if you won the Big Ten championship, you went to the Rose Bowl. So therefore it was, but that's changed, during the BCS era, it changed on occasion. And now it's pretty much completely changed, unless you just happen to play a playoff game at the Rose Bowl, which I don't even think those games should be called the Rose Bowl. It's not the Rose Bowl. It's a playoff game. But anyway, but you're Ohio State. You did not beat Michigan. You did not win the Big Ten championship. Therefore, the Rose Bowl trip, again, it's a second place game for the Big Ten now.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I didn't really think about it like that. I don't know if we were to lose to Ohio State this year, which I expect to, I don't know that Michigan would look at it the same way as Ohio State does. That it's just the Rose Bowl. It's not. But then again, Michigan has different, goals and whatever than Ohio State. Ohio State competes for national championships every year. Michigan's on its first elite year in 17 years.
Yeah, it's funny, Carl, because in talking to Ohio State fans and in talking to Michigan fans on a regular basis, even the fan bases have not switched roles yet. Like, Michigan fans do not talk like, we're the playoff team, we're the Big Ten champion, we're the team that beat Ohio State. And I know you're really happy about that and proud, but Ohio State fans still talk like, we still own the conference. We still expect to win. And we almost consider the Big Ten and I'm not talking about me personally when I say we, but consider the Big Ten almost a foregone conclusion on the way to the playoff, where Michigan still is like, Michigan fans are talking about the Ohio State game like Notre Dame fans are. Like, we've got a shot, we can do it, but not like Ohio State fans are going to be stunned if they lose to Notre Dame, number one, because they all think they're going to win by 3 or 4 touchdowns.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think it's going to be a tremendous game.
I think so.
And they're already counting up a Michigan win. Like, this team has a lot of pressure on it.
You talking about Ohio State?
Ohio State.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and they feel like they were disrespected or embarrassed last year.
Well, they were embarrassed. They weren't disrespected. If anything, Ohio State's given a lot of respect nationally.
Sure, absolutely. So my next question, I feel like this is something that nobody is talking about, and I don't know. I've never heard anybody talk about it, but it just came to my I'm at work one day and it just pops into my mind. Michigan's at 400. I'm sorry, not 400. 974, 976 total wins in its history. That's 24 wins away from 1,000. I don't know. Maybe nobody really cares about total wins anymore. But Michigan might be on the path that we're on. You got these players talking about, you just keep hearing them talking about national championship. To me, that tells me that there is confidence that they're going to win 10 to 12 games at least for the next however many years. At least they're confident in it. Do you think Michigan could be the first team to reach 1,000 wins all time?
Well, the obvious question is, give me the Alabama number.
942, if I'm not.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alabama's actually number 2, and they're a distant second.
And Ohio State lost
number
the
3.
Jim Tressel. They lost the 12 from 2010 that knocked them back.
Correct. And they're actually only 2 behind Alabama at number 3. So if they were to gain, I know the NCAA they're trying to get those 12 wins back. I don't know if they have or not yet.
So let's say they do, because this will make it more interesting. Michigan would be at 976.
Yes.
And Ohio State would jump up to 950. They went 12-1 that year.
So they'd be 952.
952. Oh, that's a lot of wins to make up. Like they were, as you know, between 2005 and last season, Ohio State was picking up a pretty good clip on Michigan, but that's, they got to win 48 games to 24. They got to double. Michigan's going to be the first to 1,000. That's
cool. Do you think there's going to be any, you think that 1,000th game or whatever, that you think there'll be any historical?
Oh, absolutely.
Thing for Michigan?
Sure.
I think that'd be really cool.
Oh yeah. That people will make a big deal about it. That's the first time it's going to be, we just celebrated 150 years of college football. So we'll be sitting on, let's say 100, the game's been played for a long, long time, and Michigan would be the first. Now you're going to have a lot of detractors that are going to say, oh, you won most of them with leather helmets on, or you don't have the best winning percentage or whatever. But regardless, it's a significant milestone.
Sure.
Huge.
Sure. I'll speed this up a little bit. Do you think Michigan has a chance to beat Ohio State and Columbus this year?
Oh, absolutely, they do. I hate to predict games in November, but 4 months in advance. But
I'm not asking for a prediction.
Got a 30-some% chance of winning that game.
Okay, because I know everyone's super high on Ohio State right now, and I mean, to me, and I'm not, and this maybe this is just coming off as bias. But to me, you gotta prove your defense first.
Yeah.
There's too many questions on defense. I think the coaches poll that just came out, I think there's so much wrong with it. Ohio State at number 2, I get it because of the offense, but there's so many questions on defense that I was shocked that they were number 2. I could have seen them being top 5, obviously, but not number 2. And I thought Clemson was just ridiculous at number 4. But anyway, so my last question, totally off topic. What about Nebraska? I feel like Nebraska people are sleeping on Nebraska, and I think their win percentage this year is 7.5. What do you think? I think they are going to be contending for the West in the Big Ten.
Well, Vegas giving them a 7.5 win total when they won 3 last year is not sleeping on Nebraska. I got to think that they have the highest win projection of any team between the number of wins last year and the projection this year. 4.5 games.
Uh-huh.
I think they're being given some kind of a consideration there that's unfounded. It's founded on performance. It's founded on playing well against good teams and losing.
Okay.
They haven't beaten a good team. They haven't beaten, and when I say good, I mean like a decent team. I mean, I don't mean a top 10 team. I mean not even a top 25 team, just a decent team since Scott Frost's first year.
And they went to the Big Ten championship against Wisconsin, if I remember that right. They got blown out.
No, you're going way back. Scott Frost didn't do that.
Oh.
That was Bo Pelini. That was way prior to Scott Frost.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well.
All right, Carl.
I feel like they could contend, and I mean, considering what they did against Ohio State and Oklahoma and Michigan last year,
sure,
I think they could be a real threat to the Big Ten
They could
West and the Big Ten Conference in general.
All right, Carl. Thanks for calling.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Mark.
it.
Have a good one.
You too. All right. We got a line of calls now, so let's get to them. We got McD showing up to talk about the Terps. Look at this.
Hey, Mark.
How are you?
Good. I'm talking about the Terps. I have the Terps going 8-4, as you saw earlier.
I see that.
I think Maryland has a chance to have the second best offense in the Big Ten. Personally,
Okay.
I'll admit I'm not high on the defense, but this offense brings back all 5 offensive line starters. They bring back every wide receiver. They have, in my opinion, a top 20 quarterback and Tola Tagovailoa. And overall, I do believe in Mike Locksley as an offensive mind. So I think if you look at the schedule, I think 8-4 is where they would be. I see that you put it up there. I think they win that week 1 game against Buffalo. They'll go on the road and beat Charlotte. They'll beat SMU. I'll admit SMU.
Beware, SMU.
Yeah.
Be careful.
That's definitely not a give me. I think they're definitely going to score some points, but I think Maryland's going to score more points than SMU. On the road at Michigan is going to be a loss. And to be completely honest with you, Mark, I would take it 9.5 over with Michigan in a heartbeat. I think Michigan's going 11-1 with a loss on the road against Ohio State.
Okay.
I know they have Iowa on the road. I think they go into Iowa and blow them out in that game.
We'll see.
But
your beginning of the Big Ten schedule there is pretty rough.
Well, that Michigan State game, I think we win. That Michigan State game, I think they take a bit of a step back. And their secondary was horrible last year. I think it was the worst last year. And I honestly don't see much improvement there. And I think Maryland, especially at home, I think it's a back and forth game, but I think Maryland tears apart that secondary and they beat Michigan State. Some people are high on Purdue. I'm not high on Purdue. Maryland should win that game, in my opinion. I don't see Purdue really winning more than like 7, 8 games. It's probably a flip of the coin since it's in Maryland. I'm giving it to the Terps. At Indiana, that will be a win. I think Indiana is heading towards some dark ages in football. I think Tom Allen is going to be out of a job in a year or two. And I think Indiana is going to be the worst team in the Big Ten probably throughout this decade. Northwestern at home. I know Pat Fitzgerald is a great coach. I think they're going to play us tough, but they just don't have the Jimmies and Joes to go up against Maryland's offense, in my opinion. I mean, if you heard on the Big Ten Network, they already did a bus tour there. It basically said they're just coach well, which is code word for that's not really a talented team. I expect Maryland to roll in that game. Then it's our bye week. Then they go on the road against Wisconsin. I think we lose that game. I do think Maryland does have a shot in that game, only because I think Wisconsin's offense, especially at the quarterback position, is very bad in my opinion. Graham Mertz, but Wisconsin's going to play great defense and they're going to run the ball, And I think Wisconsin will probably find will probably find a way to beat my Terps there at Camp Randall. On the road at Penn State, I think we also lose that game. I definitely think Maryland could go in there and beat them like they did 2 years ago. I don't know if a lot of people remember that, but it was 35-19 Terps last time that game was in Beaver Stadium. Go
I
ahead,
do.
Mark. I know you do. Last year, I know the score was 31-14. That game was a lot closer than 31-14. Penn State kind of ran away with it late. I honestly think Penn State's a year away from really being good. I think 2023 Penn State's going to be a top 10 team if you look at how their roster's going to fill out. But this is a bit of a transition year. But since it's in Beaver Stadium, I'll give it to Penn State. Next game, Ohio State loss. I know some people think this is a bit of a trap game. I do think Maryland will score some points in this game. The only problem is I don't have much faith in Maryland's defense in stopping Ohio State. I think this game probably screams 66-30 Ohio State. And then the last game, Rutgers. We'll beat Rutgers. Maryland is just better than Rutgers. They proved that last year. It was 40-16 Maryland in a game where the winner goes to a bowl game. I know Rutgers ended up in a bowl game because of their academics, which is great. But I think Maryland, especially at home, would take care of Rutgers, and that would get Maryland to 8-4, possibly a 9th win in the bowl game. So that's how I see it.
McD, those are 2 3-game stretches that are rough. Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin, Penn State, Ohio State.
I think that second one is rough. I'm not sold on Purdue. I know some people are picking Purdue as their dark horse to win the West. I don't see it. I really don't see it. I mean, I think Purdue. I know they went 9-4 last year. I just don't see it. I just think I know they bring back a lot, but I mean, are they still going to have 3 defensive coordinators? I mean, I honestly think a lot of things went right for Purdue last year. And Michigan State, I really think just takes a step back. I like Mel Tucker, but he's going to live and die by the transfer portal. And this year, I think he's going to die a little bit by the transfer portal. But so,
Okay, McD.
yeah, basically, that's how I see the Terps playing out. I think Ohio State goes undefeated. As I said, Michigan goes 11-1. The one team that's not mentioned on the Maryland schedule that we played last year, I think Minnesota comes out of the West and the Big Ten West. I think they beat Iowa, Nebraska, which I do think I agree with the last caller. I do think Nebraska is going to be right around that 7-win mark. I do agree with Vegas on that and Wisconsin. So I think you're going to get Minnesota and Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. I think Ohio State takes care of business against Minnesota. And I think Ohio State probably makes the playoffs. I honestly think outside maybe the Michigan and Penn State game and the Notre Dame game, I don't see Ohio State really having an issue against anybody, to be completely honest. I think they get Iowa and Wisconsin as well. I honestly see those games being like 35-10. So,
Hey, McD.
yeah, just
Appreciate you stopping by.
yeah, just want to show you where I have the Terps. So I'll
Okay.
keep on listening. Thanks for taking my call. Go Terps are going 8-4.
Terps at 8-4, but like I say, we love McD, but he's typically about 2 games high on the Terps. Okay, Congo. Before we get to our next call, I want to honor the super chat here. Thank you so much for that. Do you think ESPN will ghost the Big Ten now that they no longer carry them after this season like the NHL? So I talked about this the other day on the Ohio State show. We talked about it as a panel, but it was one of my points because every time we see a network change with a conference, we think about, okay, the games, the matchups, what time slots. This is a different deal, though. For the first time, ESPN, even though they've been closely linked to, for good reason, the perception there. The SEC, because of an SEC network, this is the first time ESPN will not be contracted with all 5 conferences and specifically the Big Ten. So there's a difference in the ESPN, let's say going to College Game Day or giving coverage to the Big Ten, even when it's not their big game of the day, even when they're spotlighting an SEC game or an ACC game or a couple SEC and ACC games and other conferences, they're still going to focus on the Big Ten because they know we've got this game, that game, this game, that, a lot of Big Ten games down the road. So we're still going to highlight and push the narrative and still highlight the Big Ten, even if it's not our focus this week. That all goes away. The Big Ten and ESPN, gone. First time since 1966 since 65 actually, because 66 was the first year that ABC will not broadcast the Big Ten. I think that's a tremendous point, and it's one that we again talked about, and it's going to have to be proven. I don't know if they will try to give the perception that they're not ghosting the Big Ten, but of course they are going to give preference and spotlight the conference, especially again, there is no Big Ten and ESPN anymore. Of course, that's going to affect their coverage. Absolutely. All right, we got Brooks on the line, Nebraska fan. Brooks, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
I'm good. What's going on, man?
Not much. Just I'm starved for college football content, just like probably everybody. 15 days out of
You're at the right place.
Yeah, right. And you shout out to you providing content year round, man. Kept me very well informed this off season, so I appreciate that. No, I'm intrigued and fascinated by the Huskers this year. I mean, I will admit I've been largely apathetic towards them through the Riley years, and then I really got interested in them when Frost was hired, and then we've seen how that's played out here these last couple of years. So obviously it's been hard to watch as a fan. But this year it's very interesting, the type of talent that he's brought in via the transfer portal. And I think it's interesting because it makes them, I guess, volatile as a team, meaning they could go 3-9 again. I mean, they've proven they can do it once. Why can't they do it twice? But I think they got a high ceiling though. I think that, like, college football, I think we can all agree is at a lot of times a momentum game. And I've seen that as a Husker fan these last couple of years. You watch the momentum be in our favor the first half of a lot of these games. And then a fumble, a blocked punt, or whatever it is, and all of a sudden the momentum shifts and the inevitable. But I really think that when the momentum shifts in the other way, it has the potential to sort of have a cascading effect. And with the talent that they brought in this year, sure, there's a lot of volatility. I mean, getting them all on the same page as quickly as they're being asked to is a pretty tall task, right? But you could also catch lightning in a bottle. I mean, we're talking about, 18 to 22-year-old kids. You never know what you're going to get. I don't think anybody really predicted that Joe Burrow would lead LSU to 15-0 in 2019. I'm not saying that's going to happen with the Cornhuskers. I'm just saying that I keep flip-flopping. Like, my brother and I have a Cornhusker podcast, right? And I keep shout out Cornhusker Corner. Sorry, I had to do it. But I keep flip-flopping because I got a prediction that I have to make this weekend on the season. And do I drink the Kool-Aid and predict 9-3 or 10-2, or do I come back to reality and predict 6-6 or 5-7? It's just, I'm flip-flop, because I might predict them to be 10-2 this week, and then when we preview the game next week, I might be on the other side and predict them to lose to Northwestern. So I don't know. It's just interesting. Very interesting year for the Cornhuskers.
So you catch a break, and I don't want to call it a break because Nebraska has gotten battered in scheduling here the last several years and taken on share at plus of the best teams in the Big Ten Eastern Division. So you replace Ohio State and Michigan State with Rutgers and Indiana.
Right.
That's big.
Right.
It's only
Huge.
a 9-game season. It's only a 9-game conference schedule, and 2 of
Mhm.
them go from 2 of the top 10 teams in the country to 2 teams that you have to beat.
Yeah, I mean, but the problem is, you watch, for example, you watch the Ohio State game from last year, and you watch the way our linebackers played in that game and the way they rallied towards the ball. It wasn't really that they were ever out of position. It was usually that an Ohio State player makes a play, as they tend to do, right? But then you watch the Purdue game or you watch the Illinois game, and it's like one of them makes you excited about the next year, the other one makes you dread the next year. Man, so you talk about trading those 2, big level opponents for 2 smaller level opponents, and I agree, but like I said, the momentum has to be in their favor. It's very interesting. Look, I was actually watching some of Texas early games last year, just to see how Casey played before he got hurt, just to see what types of reads if he was going through his progression, or if I felt that he was pre-reading, how the ball was coming out of his hands, how fast it was coming out, what kind of just the general stuff. And one thing I noticed is that Bijan Robinson is a monster, total monster. I mean, unbelievable player. But that offense tended to pass off of the run, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like they would establish the run, and then the pass would really open up and Casey could work. I hope that our running back room pans out at Nebraska this year and we're able to do that, but that's a tall task in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is, man, those front sevens, even from some of the lower to mid-level teams, as we figured out, is sort of a meat grinder. But so really what they're asking Casey is to we're going to have to ask him to allow us to run off of the pass, which is really like, I mean, I don't really know how it's going to look. I'm just guessing, really, at the end of the day. But man, if that is the case, that's going to be a lot.
There are 5, 6 teams in the country, something like that, that I have, high ceiling, pretty low floor. Like I got a pretty good beat on just about everybody, but put Nebraska, like you say, in that barrel of, because like you talked about momentum during a game, there's momentum during a season too. And if things don't break the right way, then you could see it cascading kind of like it has. Now, I don't think the schedule is going to allow 3 and 9. It's just not. I think
Yeah.
I can't see less than 5 and 7.
Right.
But this is the team that none of these guys are used to success.
Mm-hmm.
So if they get it early and get it going, they have to beat Northwestern. And if they do, they're
Right.
going to be 3-0 when they play Oklahoma. Now, it would be amazing to beat Oklahoma. And they can beat Oklahoma. They're good enough to beat Oklahoma. I don't think they're as good as Oklahoma, but that wouldn't be any kind of shock if they beat Oklahoma.
Different systems, I think.
Yeah, I was surprised that they stayed as close as they did last year on the road. And I think Casey Thompson is an upgrade over Adrian Martinez. He just is. And I think they've just strength and conditioning are a better team. They've worked at it. I think Mark Whipple is a top offensive coordinator. They've made substantial upgrades.
Right.
They need to rush the passer. They have not had
I was just
pass rush for years.
Right.
And they got a chance.
I mean, Garrett Nelson,
O'Shawn Mathis, they got a chance.
Right.
He
looks like a different. He looks like a different
like
human. Garrett looks like a different human being from when he got here as a freshman. I mean, it's a testament to they're doing right things within the system. I mean, the guys look like different human beings when they're there for multiple years, which is the sign of obviously a system that's at least able to, provide the right resources for players to get better. And that's the thing. I mean, I was watching the TCU versus Texas game, and one thing that stuck out to me was, man, we are asking a lot of O'Shawn to come in and be a run stopper. I mean, if that's what we're asking of him, O'Shawn Mathis, because and it wasn't anything against him. I mean, he's one part of an 11-man TCU defense, but boy, were they getting sliced and diced in that game by Bijan, man. And like I said, it wasn't all O'Shawn. I don't want to put it all on one player, but yeah, they're asking a lot of that D line. To me, that's one of the biggest question marks on the team. Obviously, you got your O line, then you got the D line, which, I mean, there's just a lot of question marks. You have Ty Robinson, who isn't really a question mark in my opinion. I mean, he's proved he can go snap for snap, at least on our team. And you can rely on him through the course of a Big Ten game in October or even November. But besides that, you have Nash, who looks great, but like I said, he's just a question mark at this point. You haven't seen him as consistently as you've seen some of the other guys. Stephon Wynn, same thing, question mark. And then you could throw in a guy like Mosai Newsome. Who else am I forgetting? I know there's another guy. There's four dudes in that interior D line, and to me, 3 of them are question marks. So that's a thing. But we got some dudes in the defensive backfield. So if we can get any pressure on the quarterback, I don't think teams will be throwing against us. But if they can establish the run, the things that go through my brain at 9:30 p.m. Mark.
Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's going to be fascinating.
It really is.
If there's a team in the Big Ten that I don't have a read on, they're the one. I think I can come up in a game or two of a prediction on every team in the Big Ten, but them.
You and me both, brother. You and me both. Well, I'll be at the OU game, so I'm excited for that. Yeah, I'm excited for that. We'll see what kind of game it is. I went to the Ohio State game last year, and the last game I went to before that was Miami in 2014, and everyone was high on Bo Pelini. I remember in the crowd, everyone, let's go, Bo! Let's go. Things change, so we'll see what happens.
They do.
Yeah.
All right, Brooks. Appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mark.
GBR.
GBR, brother.
Yeah. Enjoy the season, and you get a jump on it a week before just about everybody else. So that's
we'll see. We'll see if it's positive or negative momentum. We'll see.
All right, man.
All right.
Have a good night.
See you later. You too, brother.
All right. Good stuff from Brooks, Nebraska fan. Let's get to a few super chats. Congo, thank you so much for the one that we posted and talked about. Big Irish Balls. Yes. Super sticker from you. And also, let me find it here. Big orange one coming through here somewhere. Where in the heck is it? I saw it pop up. Now I can't find it. Ryan Dawes, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. Appreciate that. Go Buckeyes. Evening, Mark. Assuming Ohio State returns to the top of the heap, who do they meet in the Big Ten championship game? You tell me. Who do they meet in the championship game? I have not made the prediction. My predictions will be out in a couple weeks. So I will acknowledge that super chat if I remember when I make that prediction. The Big Ten Western Division is fun. You may not think it's very good. I actually think it's a decent division. No elite teams, no elite programs, but deep. 5 deep probably this year. You can go 5 different teams. So what can I say? I kind of outlined off the top of the show when I went through every team in the Big Ten what I consider to be keys for each one of those teams in the Western Division. Minnesota's intriguing too. Nebraska, yes. Minnesota as well intrigues me. All right. And also, we want to remind everyone, got a lot of Big Ten fans here. We've got an Iowa show Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 Central. Iowa on the Iowa channel. So some of you are watching on the main channel. We've got Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Iowa, Nebraska channels all up and running and firing. Appreciate you being here. But again, join us for conversation live. Iowa, Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern, Nebraska Tuesday at 7 Eastern. Then Wednesday, we got a big day of Big Ten football. We've got Ohio State typically at 1:30 Eastern on Wednesday, Michigan at 5. And actually, tomorrow night, Penn State fans, we got our buddies Tim Aiden and Marty Leap from Black Shoe Diaries doing a big Penn State show, season preview, predictions, the whole deal. So it's Marty and Tim, our post-game hosts for Penn State football, going to be here on the main channel live on Sunday night. All right, let's bring in Ben and talk some more Big Ten football. Ben, how you doing?
Hey, Mark, how are you, man?
I'm good.
I got a couple things, but I want to quickly jump back to the Wisconsin comment that somebody made where they said that Wisconsin wouldn't make a bowl game. And, I'm old enough to remember that last year Wisconsin had Penn State by less than a touchdown and Notre Dame until the fourth quarter. And that was close up until
5 minutes left, 8
Yeah,
minutes
I mean,
left.
that was a close game. And I mean, as a Michigan fan, I remember Michigan was close up until midway through the third. I mean, if you take out those 3 games, you flip them the other way, they're 11-1. And now magically they turn around, they go 5-7. Maybe I'm missing something here.
Oh, yeah. They're one of those rock solid programs, and there's not many of them that I have to see it first. I have to see Wisconsin collapse because 8-4 is the minimum for them.
Right. And I mean, to be fair, that one game that they did lose was that Minnesota game. And I mean, that was still a close game. They were up, I think that was 10-6 at the half, something like that. I mean, they're almost like a Nebraska, just better in this case, where they were in a lot of these games that they lost. They were close games. And now, to be fair, they are returning one of the lower production levels in the Big Ten this year.
Yep.
I think 62%, something like that. But it's just, I saw that and I'm like, how is this guy going to say that? I mean, come on, man.
Well, anybody can say whatever they want in the
That's true.
off season. And is it possible? Of course it's possible. Injuries aside, put that into it. But man, there's very few teams across the nation that I pretty much, they've proven themselves over 30 years, multiple head coaches, that this is pretty much what they do every year. They go 8-4, 9-3, or 10-2. Almost
and hey, their fan base is happy with it, and for them that's good seasons, and sometimes they beat some good teams, and it is what it is. But my second thing, obviously I'm a Michigan fan, and going into this season knowing that USC, UCLA are coming to the Big Ten, I've been to a lot of Michigan games. I've been going to them since I was 10 years old. I'm 21 now, so it's been about 11 years. I've never been to a Rose Bowl, and if we make it to a Rose Bowl this year, it means that we probably lost to you guys, or we lost to Michigan State, or like you said earlier, we're the second best team in the Big Ten, right? And I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of stuck on whether or not I'd be upset about that, because I'd love to experience a Rose Bowl before it's kind of died out.
Again, I just let you guys talk to me, and I just kind of perceive what I hear, and Michigan fans still just have a different mindset for what the expectations are for their team and their program versus Ohio State fans. And that's not right or wrong. It's just what it is.
Right. I don't know, man. It's a hard time to be a Michigan fan, with all this returning production we've got and whatnot, It's fun though. Second thing I wanted to bring to your attention is, I think someone earlier as well mentioned Minnesota, or you were talking about it. I don't quite remember, but I'm old enough to remember Mohamed Ibrahim. I think I said his name right.
You did.
He was fantastic last year up until he got hurt against you guys. I mean, I don't see a reason why they couldn't also be in contention outside of Wisconsin, which I think is, in my opinion, the front runner. I mean, a lot of people have Nebraska too up there, but people are forgetting that Mohamed coming back, they're going to have a great run game. Like you said earlier, they're bringing back their pass game, or their offensive coordinator from Penn State. They've got 17th year quarterback coming back, whatever he's at now. I mean, I don't see a reason why they don't have another breakout year like 2019. Your thoughts?
Well, it's also surprising. I don't think many people recognized how good Minnesota was on defense.
Right.
And they've lost some players, but everybody does. But they do bring back 3 of their top 4 tacklers. Coney Durr was a really special player. He's off to the NFL. But my biggest concern for Minnesota in terms of just nuts and bolts football personnel is that the offensive line was really good last year. As you well know, Mo Ibrahim went out against, as you mentioned, against Ohio State. He was on his way to, he had 160 yards, not even in the fourth quarter. And that was looking to be a possible upset. He leaves. They went through 5 tailbacks last year, and they all produced because they had a great offensive line. They had a great offensive line, and they lost 4 of those offensive line starters. So I don't know. Usually Minnesota's not the type program that can just replace guys.
Sure, right.
Like that happens at other places. So that would be my one big concern about Minnesota. I don't know that their offensive line is going to be nearly as good as it was last year.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. I don't follow their recruiting all that well, so I don't know what they've been recruiting. I don't know what's coming in the works for them, but if they're even a fraction of as good, I don't see a reason why they couldn't be. Like I said, especially with them coming back. I mean, he had Kenneth Walker-like numbers in that first game. I mean, it was incredible. But I guess the last thing I'll throw to you here, I don't want to take up all your time and appreciate you doing this. Bruce Feldman came out with his freaks list. Obviously, Mozzie Smith from Michigan, Julius Welshoff being there as well, both in the top 10. A big note for me, though, was Marvin Harrison being there, your guys' receiver. And I'll be honest with you, I follow a lot of the guys. I know some Michigan players. I've talked to some of them. I've heard some things said about Smith and Jigba. I've seen his stuff. I've seen all the tape. I'm not really that sold on him. I think he's a really good receiver, but I'm not sold on him being this next level receiver that I think a lot of people put him up to be. I could see Marvin Harris, though, being that just because he's more of an unknown factor that people don't know. He's essentially what Smith and Jigba was going into last season in a lot of ways. Figured I'd get an Ohio State fan's perspective on that.
Well, here's a rough comparison. I don't think the correlation is perfect, but I think there's some merit here. Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, when you look at those two guys and the way they play and just their style of play and their physical capabilities, Chris Olave was a baller. He was a guy that you could like throw him at safety and he would do a respectable job. Like he was just a baller. Garrett Wilson, though, was the physical specimen, looked like, and continues to, of course, looks like a first-round NFL wide receiver. Just long strides, lean, just beautiful strides, plucks the football out of the air with ease, just a complete natural. And again, the correlation isn't perfect, but Jackson Smith, the Jigba, has a similar body type to Chris Olave. And Marvin Harrison, you know, I knew he was on his way, and I knew when I was watching the first spring game with him that, you know, obviously they had recruited him, and we know who his dad is. But even in the first game, like he looked like a polished NFL receiver. He looked polished plus the physical attributes of a senior going into the NFL or a junior going into the NFL as a freshman, like already fully developed. And yeah, I see it. Absolutely. I see it. I see another Garrett Wilson when I look at Marvin Harrison.
I mean, hey, for my sake, I hope you're wrong. I really do. But, you know, for their sake and their future careers, obviously, I'm sure they'll be great. And they'll be my problem for the next several years. But, hey, I appreciate it, man. And I won't be there to watch us play in person this year because I've never been to a winning Michigan away game. And I don't like to jinx that, even though I went to the Georgia game this year. But, yeah, it hurts, man. It does. But,
Yeah.
hey, I appreciate the time, man. And you have yourself a good one.
Well, call back anytime, Ben. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks. Have a good one, man.
All right. Before we take our next call here on our Big Ten preview live stream, we got Mark Bohannon with the Super Chat contribution. Appreciate that so much. Mark says, with all the money Fox is paying, will they insist that the Big Ten goes to 10 conference games? Hmm. So, of course, with 16 teams, so the further we stretch these conferences, the more games are not played, the more big matchups are not played, because you can't have just all the best teams in a conference play each other. Of course, you have to have a somewhat fair and equitable scheduling system. And so the more teams you have in a conference, the less Ohio State and Wisconsin play, the less Penn State and Iowa play, whatever the matchup. And the conference will probably be configured in some different way, especially if it continues to expand. I would answer that question, Mark, that that obviously becomes more and more likely the more the Big Ten expands. Now, whether they're going to demand or insist on that now is a great question. But again, you have just more room for more meaningful games that people want to see on the table that will not be played each and every season, the bigger the conference is. So, interesting point there, but it's only a 12-game season, and you do want to leave enough room for these conferences to play, and for the Big Ten in particular to play meaningful out-of-conference games, because those look good to Fox as well. Ohio State, Notre Dame. Who's Michigan State got this year? They don't play anybody. Washington. Anyway, big non-conference games, and of course, you can't load up a schedule and have a murderer's row for these teams to play. So they got to play a cupcake, and that only would leave one per big team. But interesting question there, and certainly it's a valid point to be made. We got David Greenshield on the line, Buckeyes fan. David.
Yes, to the man that gives college football its voice, the great Mark Rogers. Hi, and how are you, sir?
I am doing well, David. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I want to talk. Obviously, let's get to the Big Ten. I saw you hanging out with your new best bud, Steve Dace, a few weeks ago. Again, Mark, I wish you picked your friends a little bit better, but, I digress. You need to start running with a better crowd there, Mark. Let's
Well,
put
they
it
say
that
you
way.
got to know your enemies. You should bring in those enemies close to the inner circle. You should know your enemy.
I hear you. Well, to the point with what he was talking about, where they're at this year, let's say compared to where they were last year. And I find it interesting. I think from an offensive perspective, I still think that they are going to be good to very good offensively. They lose Haskins at running back, but I do think the Quorum and Donovan Edwards backfield can be very good. The one thing that I'll say in the Harbaugh era is he seems to pretty much about every year put together solid offensive line play, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
So I think from their perspective of being able to run the football, I think they should be pretty good. They return Ronnie Bell's probably their best wide receiver coming back.
He's the most experienced and polished. He's not nearly the most talented.
Okay. Well, not knowing quite their wide receiver depth, do they have a guy, let's say, on like a Peoples Jones, Nico Collins level from, let's say, a few years ago?
Yeah, I believe so. Maybe not.
Okay.
Donovan Peoples-Jones is turning into a pretty good NFL player. Maybe not quite, but
Right.
close.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I thought they had a good group, in 2019. I just was never, because they had Tariq Black, they had Peoples Jones,
Mhm.
and then they had Nico Collins. I was just never a believer in Shea Patterson, a quarterback, and I think I was proven right on that. But, I do think when I look at them from an offensive perspective, I think their skill is pretty good, and I think they'll have solid offensive line play. I just think that the bottom line, and I got this point from Dace in the conversation, I think that there's a certain level with Cade McNamara that they can only get to at quarterback. That there's like a ceiling there, basically. I take it that he and your Michigan group kind of feel the same way.
Yeah, I think it's pretty apparent that most Michigan fans or anybody that's paying attention considers, if you're going to put this in numeric values, that if the perfect quarterback's 100, that Cade McNamara can only be a 75, and he's probably a 70 already. And JJ McCarthy, yes, it's a possibility that he could bottom out and make mistakes and be a 60, but he's probably almost already a 70, just like Cade McNamara, but he's got the potential to be a 90. So why not play him?
Right. Well, and I see that. Well, the one thing with them that helps them is their schedule is really doable. Correct me if I'm wrong. They had Wisconsin, Penn State, and Michigan State all on the road last year. So they would have them all at home this year. Correct?
Well, they're not playing all those teams because of the Big Ten Western schedule.
Okay.
I don't think they've got Wisconsin. Let me double check.
I'm sorry. Yeah, they'll at least have.
They've got Iowa
Okay,
this year
okay.
on the road.
But they'll have Michigan State and Penn State at home.
Yes.
Where they had them on the road last year.
Absolutely.
And I don't see a great non-conference opponent either. Do you, Mark?
I don't see a non-conference opponent with a pulse.
I was being generous by what I said, by the way. But yeah, I would totally agree with you. So their schedule's awfully doable, I would say, to be able to get them to a point to where maybe, they may ease JJ McCarthy in over the course of the season. Yeah, that's pretty weak.
Yeah, I don't know that you could
non-conference.
go out and try to schedule a weaker non-conference schedule. Like UConn is one of the very worst teams in they're just atrocious. And Colorado State's not been good for a long time. They've been awful, and Hawaii's okay for a group of 5, but still you're Michigan. Yeah, that's really awful.
I mean, I think that there's, the other thing too, did you get the feeling that Dace believes their defense can be as good as it was last year without their 3 best players?
Without completely answering for him, because he believes that the team is better and more talented than last year, and I just can't quite buy that. I just can't buy that you lose arguably the 2 best bookends in the nation, definitely in the top 3 or 4, and you lose both of those guys. And then you lose a Daxton Hill, who's one of the most versatile and best defensive backs in the conference / the country, and you're better on defense. Oh my goodness, I can't think of the linebacker's name that they lost as well. One of their leading tacklers. I know he was limited athletically, but he was one of their best players. I don't see how their defense gets better.
I agree with you, Mark. I just statistically, in all the statistical rankings, I just wonder if they're going to be as good, whether you want to look at points per game, yards given up, whatever the case might be, as they were a year ago, losing their 3 best players. And,
thank you, Chad. Josh Ross. I don't know why that name escaped me. I've only said it about 800 times in my life. Josh Ross, yes. Junior Colson's going to be a star, though, but Josh Ross, he's gone. Yeah, I don't add it
the
up.
linebacker. I believe their middle linebacker, right?
Yeah, I really like Hassan Haskins. I just like him as a player, a guy that, was a 3-star, not highly regarded, switches from linebacker to running back, was a running back in high school that was supposed to be a running back in college, and they switch him to linebacker. That's his main focus. Then they need a running back, and they switch him to running back, and he takes off. But, I don't know that they're really going to miss him because they've got 2 more talented backs now in the backfield. But who knows? Maybe much like Ohio State against Michigan this past year, they're going to miss Hassan Haskins on 3rd and 2.
Well, I mean, Edwards was highly recruited. He was the second best running back in that class behind Travion Henderson, from what I
Right.
remember. So,
Yeah.
and from what I've seen, he's very talented, and I think Quorum is very good too. So, I still think they'll be able to run the ball. I will say this though, I think they have a very good chance to roll into Columbus at the very least 10-1, maybe even a chance to come into Columbus undefeated. What do you think, Mark?
Oh, they've got a chance. They're going to be favored unless something drastically changes. They're going to be favored in every game. So
Yeah,
sure, they've
I would
got a
agree.
chance.
I would agree, especially considering they've got Penn State and Michigan State at home. So, and I do think that they're better than both of those football teams. I do. So, I mean, could we see 2006 all over again? Maybe both teams undefeated.
We could.
Possibly.
It's not likely, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Sure.
Well, enough talking about that team. Let's talk about the real team in the Big Ten, Mark.
Oh, okay.
And that's yes. I had to get there, Mark. The Ohio State University. First
Yes.
of all, I have to say, from an offensive perspective, I love this offense. Multiple good receivers. I believe multiple good backs. One of the two best quarterbacks, I believe, coming back in the country. And I think a very good offensive line.
David, we're losing you a bit here.
The only holdback, because they don't have a lot of depth. Is that the only holding back the Buckeye offense?
You're cutting out on us there, David. So one more time on the question, and then I may have to let you go, and I'll respond.
Okay, can you hear me, Mark?
Yeah, we got you.
Mark, I said about the Buckeye offense, I think that they're with the skill position play and the quarterback, the only thing that could hold them back is maybe an injury or two on the offensive line because the depth lacking there. I don't know. Is that your thought?
Sure. Oh, that's a
Mark?
Yeah, pretty conventional thought there on the Ohio State offensive line, that the first 5, 6 are really good. It's going to be a top 3 to 5 line in the country if everybody stays healthy, but the backups, I don't think lack in talent, but don't have really any experience. And the Ohio State's got to run the ball when they want to run the ball. And the numbers say that they had a great running game last year, and it was most of the time. They hit for big plays, and they ran it down Tulsa's throats and others. But we know what happened at times against Oregon and especially against Michigan. So they've got to be able to run the ball. They were the third best rushing attack in the nation in yards per carry, but that doesn't always translate, and it didn't in crucial spots. And the offense was the best offense by most measurements in the nation last year, but they got to be the best when they need to be the best. They weren't the best against Michigan. They weren't the best offense in the country against Oregon. I'll give CJ Stroud a pass. Second game played at that point. All right. Appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much for your participation. Got a familiar name here. Mr. Brada, what's going on tonight?
Well, Mark, I just people don't want to hear from me necessarily. But can you hear me, Mark?
I got you.
Okay, good. Just got back from Iowa Media Day here a couple hours ago. So I figured it would be appropriate to give you a call.
Phenomenal.
Just to kind of check in, since this is a Big Ten preview show. I will say this: I posted some content on my channel here in the last hour. So if anybody wants to check out, if you're an Iowa fan or you want to know the other side of it, if you're a fan of some other program, definitely check out my channel, From the Hawkeye of the Storm. But I'm starting to become more and more sold on Iowa's defensive line. So if anybody's wondering if Iowa's defense can return to not only its form last year, but its stellar form of 2020, I think they've got a shot at being better on the line. Depth-wise, they seem to be healthy there, which is a pleasant surprise, 10 days into camp. As far as injuries are concerned, that's always the storyline in fall camp. So they've had their fair share. Wide receivers just continues to be an injury-plagued position. Keegan Johnson's still not quite back. I believe Brody Brecht is working his way back. We got unfortunate news that Deontay Vines, who had been really strong in fall camp so far, injured his wrist. He'll be out at least halfway through the season. So that's a blow. They're really thin at that position right now. But overall, I was encouraged by the defense, discouraged by the injuries at wide receiver, because that's certainly a position they don't need. They don't need injuries at. They need all personnel locked in, and it's just been unfortunate. Continue to hear good things about running back. They're not real deep at that position, but they're strong at tight end, and you know what they've got at quarterback, Mark. Nothing really as far as I don't want to give you guys a bunch of little tidbits that only Iowa fans would care about, like, hey, the third string guy is really coming on strong, or this guy's going to be back in a week or two. So I won't bore you with that. But I guess overall impressions for Big Ten fans in general is Iowa is still battling at quarterback, at least according to the staff. I expect it to be spent, but nobody's tipping, Brian, Kirk, they're not tipping their hats as far as that battle. I did speak with Alex Padilla today, and he doesn't seem unhappy. I'll say that. I don't know what that means. Does that mean he's complacent? I hope not. But he doesn't seem unhappy, and it just kind of seems to be we're kind of in the same spot we were in spring at that position. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll just have to wait till September 3rd.
Okay, so you get to hear obviously from Kirk Ferentz, coordinators, players.
Yeah, we got it all, Mark. We got every assistant coach on the. I didn't get to speak with. There's a few that I didn't. You just don't have time to speak with everybody, but they were all made available. And University of Iowa does a great job. Excuse me. University of Iowa does a great job with media day. They just make it very friendly to the press, and they do a great job. Now, we got everybody today, and we got one thing that's changed since the 2020 offseason controversy, Mark. One of the changes that's been put in place is Kirk Ferentz, prior to 2020, did not allow his true freshmen to speak to the media. And I think a lot of people understood why. But I think the narrative, especially after the 2020 off-season accusations, I think a lot of people viewed that as, being controlling. So that's one thing they've loosened the reins on. We were able to speak with Iowa's true freshman kicker, who I believe will be Iowa's kicker. We got to speak with Aaron Graves, who's a freak, who I think will play. Xavier Wampa, 5-star safety, was there, who's a true freshman, and a number of the other true freshmen. So that was a good change as well. But Iowa does a great job hosting its annual media day.
So from a personnel perspective, is this on the high end of Iowa teams from the last 15 to 20 years? Is this on the low end, or is this somewhere in, I will call, the 8-4 Iowa range?
The schedule is harder, so I think it's on the higher end. I think this is a team that's built to win as many games as they were built to win last year, had the schedule been, if the schedule were the same. I think this team has a chance to actually be better than last year. The offense, you and I both know, Mark, the offense can't be much worse. It just can't be. So, they're plagued with injury at wide receiver, but in general, I'd have to think the line's going to get a little bit better. Running back, even though they lose Tyler Goodson, who right now is, I believe as we speak, is playing for the Packers on national television. I think they're going to improve at running back. You'd have to think quarterback's going to make some sort of an improvement. I think the defense has a chance to be better. They produced a lot of turnovers last year. Some people would call that gimmicky. It's kind of what Iowa defenses do, as you well know. However, there have been some. Don Patterson, is anybody who watches our show knows that former Iowa assistant coach, offensive coordinator under Hayden Fry. Don Patterson shared some interesting statistics with me this morning. And this, I'll just give you one of them, Mark, and we can save the rest for next Tuesday when we have our live show. In 2020, in 8 conference games, Iowa gave up just 4 super explosive plays of 30 yards or more all season in 8 games, which is unreal. That's an insane number. In 2021, in 10 conference games, including the Big Ten championship game, they gave up 17 super explosive plays of 30 plus. And that would surprise, I think, most fans or even just casual fans, because people perceived that defense last year to just be absolutely stellar. Well, there's improvements to be made, whether it be pass rush improvements. Riley Moss gave up some big plays. Matt Hankins gave up some big plays. He departs for the NFL. They've got some room to improve. So I think the defense can actually be better. I'm higher on the defensive line sitting here this evening than I was last night at this time, just because being able to see these guys and just how impressive guys like Aaron Graves and Logan Lee look, and Noah Shannon. I keep hearing great things about him. But with that being said, we'll get a better look tomorrow. They've got an open scrimmage, so I don't know if you're doing a call-in show tomorrow, but if I don't talk to you before Tuesday, we'll talk about it Tuesday. We should be able to get a look at some of these guys tomorrow, but I'm higher on the defensive line than I have been. So I think collectively they could be better. I just don't know if it'll result in a better record. It's going to be hard to get to 10-2 when you have Ohio State on the road, Michigan at home, Minnesota on the road, Purdue on the road. You get Wisconsin at home. It's just going to be a fight to get there. If they get to 10-2, I think they win the West.
Here's a few little nuggets here regarding metrics compiled throughout that 21 season that I'd like for you to respond to. I'm getting these out of Athlons. So Iowa scoring drives started at an average at its own 42-yard line, and that was one of the, depending on how you look at it, one of the shortest fields of any team in the country in terms of average scoring drive. So they needed scoring position. They needed field position to mount scoring drives. And when Iowa started at its own 40 or worse, only scored touchdowns 12% of the time, and that's one of the worst marks in the nation.
Yeah, that's what's crazy is special, and that's in large part not only because of the defense, but because of special teams. They do get Torrey Taylor back, which is maybe the biggest offseason. Like, everybody wants to celebrate Laporta and Moss coming back. Mark, Torrey Taylor coming back might be the biggest return for Iowa because he does so much for field position. Now, they do lose Charlie Jones, who's also big for field position on the flip side of this, and so kick return, punt return is a question mark, but yeah, they just got to be more opportunistic. They had so many drives that just went nowhere, and the 3 and outs just kill you. So I don't know if, having an open field, a longer field to work with, is there something to that might actually help them? I don't know. You'd hate to think that, because obviously you want good scoring position, good field position to start your drives. But, and turnovers were a factor as well. When you turn the ball over, when your defense is turning the ball over, it's going to put you in a good position. So we've used the illustration of squeezing every last drop of ketchup out of that bottle. They did that last year. They're going to have to figure out how to be better in other areas, because I just don't think they're not going to be able to produce I don't see them producing 30 turnovers. Hopefully they do. And if they do, that's probably an indication that they got better at forcing fumbles, because I think they only recovered 5 fumbles all of last year, and they had like 25 interceptions. So that's going to be a question mark if they can continue at that rate of turnover production defensively. But they're going to have to be better at pass rush. Like I said, how do you fill in for the loss of Caleb Shudak at place kicker? I know that some of the national guys will probably laugh when we're talking about punter and kicker, but it's a huge part of the game, Mark, especially at Iowa when there's the margin for error is less because you don't have an offense that's very efficient. Everything else has to go your way. So you have to be stellar on special teams and defense unless that offense takes a jump. And so far, I have no reason to think the offense is going to take a jump. I hope it's better. I don't think it can get worse. It's probably going to be better, but it's not going to take some huge jump unless we see tomorrow. I mean, if we start seeing, Mark, if they just come out tomorrow and start running spread and Joey Labus is just dancing all over the field and throwing dimes, then I'll come on here and we'll talk. But until I see that, even in a practice format, I'm skeptical.
Yeah, you are not just skeptical, you're just reasonable. The turnover margin not only was as egregious in a favorable way for Iowa than the stats show, but I'm looking at a metric that shows that during quality time of the game, eliminating all turnovers during what is considered garbage time, and I don't know what the metric is on, what point differential has to be in play for it to be garbage time or how much time left in the game. But Iowa not only forced turnovers completely during all games, during all time, but in crunch time, according to this metric, best turnover ratio in the nation during what was non-garbage time. And then lastly, the offense not only struggled at 123rd in the country, that is the number, right? 123 in total offense.
In total offense, yeah. Which, by the way, let me just say this real quick. I've had people, that's not the way you measure Iowa football. And I had a media personality, and I'm not going to rip. I really respect this media guy that was on my show. He's a class act, and I won't say who it is, but he said the same thing. He said that's not really the true way to measure Iowa football and their offense. Well, guess what? Chuck Long has said exactly the opposite. He said the true way to measure an offense's production is through total offense. That's the only way. And Chuck Long, as you know, is one of the greatest quarterbacks in the Big Ten of all time. And he was also a rather successful offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. I know he wasn't great as a head coach at San Diego State, but total offense, they are 123.
Well, I think yards per play is also a huge indicator, and Iowa had to have been low. Now, they probably ran less plays than a lot of offenses, number one, because they don't run an up-tempo type of offense, but also because of the 3 and outs and getting off the field.
Exactly, when you're constantly
and
going
not sustaining drives. But
right.
Also 123rd in explosive plays, explosive percentage rate. And again, I don't know what the formulas are there, but I do know that there are some advanced metrics that deal with explosive plays, just like you talked about on the favorable defensive side. The offense, again, just not getting it done in any way, shape, or form last season.
Not in any way, shape, or form. And, you talk about I go back to wide receiver. You talk about a wide receiver core that struggled last year, Mark. What do? You lose the guy you thought was number one heading into last year in Tyrone Tracy. You lose him to Purdue. You lose your best special teams guy, returner, and wide receiver, one of your best wide receivers in Charlie Jones. Your number one receiver is battling injuries through summer and through camp, was out basically all the spring, Keegan Johnson. Another guy you think can be an X guy who's a dual sport athlete with baseball as a pitcher at Iowa, dealing with a hamstring. He's out. Deontay Vines, who's a scholarship guy, now he's out half the season. I mean, and you lose Jackson Ritter, who was actually a walk-on that played last year at that position. So that's why I'm not sold at all that this offense is going to take a jump. I think it's just by common sense it's going to get better. But to your point, I don't think there's a ton of – I don't know what you point to at this point that says, wow, this is a difference maker.
Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Let me get the banner up there because I want to make sure everyone knows where you can get your Iowa football talk. Of course, at the Voice of College Football, but Corey really goes in depth on a regular basis there from the Hawkeye of the Storm, back from Iowa Media Days. Good stuff.
Thanks, Mark. I'll let you got some other people that want to call in, and I know the other 13 members of this conference, this fine organization, this conference, want to be represented. So appreciate the time, and if we don't talk tomorrow, we'll talk Tuesday.
Thanks, Corey. All right. Going outside the conference, and that is allowed, not an issue. Or are we going outside the conference? I don't know. A lot of Big Ten fans are still hopeful, still wanting this. We got our Notre Dame fan, Will, here. Will, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, loving the discussion. Listen, like I have a lot of respect for Iowa and what they do, but with like can we call Spencer Petras like a MAC level quarterback? Do you think that's fair to him?
Let's call Spencer Petras MAC level. Well, maybe not
Like
one of the better players in the MAC, but yeah, I know that sounds like a slam, so I'm confirming your slam, but really, probably.
I feel like last year was a bit of an anomaly. I'm not trying to slam the West, but there are a lot of teams that had bad performances in the West. I'm not saying they're all bad teams, but like with Minnesota losing to Bowling Green and all that. Like I feel like the West was kind of given to Iowa by default.
Well, Minnesota losing to Bowling Green didn't affect.
Well, yeah, I know, but they all had.
This may, as a Notre Dame fan, we may need to explain this to you how conferences work.
I know it works, but I said they had bad performances. I didn't mean like I wasn't trying to say like in conference. But yeah, the one team I say that can take a jump, I think Minnesota can take a jump because Mike Stanford was their offensive coordinator last year, and he was awful at Notre Dame and awful at Minnesota. Like, I like PJ Fleck. I think he's I like watching him like talk and stuff about his team and row the boat. I think it's fun, but like, why did you hire Mike Stanford as your offensive coordinator?
PJ Fleck always wears the nice sweater vest too. He's always looking sharp.
Mm-hmm. So I definitely think that Minnesota can. Yep. I'm not saying they can have like an 11-win season, but I think they can have. I think they can surprise some people with how good their offense can look with a competent offensive coordinator. Like, what are you saying?
Well, what they did in 2019 was throw 30 touchdowns. Tanner Morgan threw 30 touchdown passes in 2019. Now they did have Tyler Johnson and Rashad Bateman who are playing in the NFL. But Kirk Ciarrocca was the architect of that offense.
And he's back, correct?
Yes.
So I definitely think they can, not that as many touchdowns, but you said 30 touchdowns?
Through 30.
I think they can throw like 24 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think Tanner Morgan threw like 10 last year.
Yeah, they at least double. It gotta be at least double that. With Kurt Ciarrocca back at the helm, that could happen. I mean, I kind of feel like Minnesota kind of has a mental block against Iowa, but I think Purdue also got some. Didn't Purdue get some transfers that they got transfers from? Did they get two?
Got a couple from Iowa.
2 from Iowa?
Yes.
Yeah, so I definitely think that I just feel like losing David Bell and George Karlaftis, like I think the Boilers will be in it in the West, but I don't know if they can do it with that losing those two guys, even with who they're bringing back from the portal.
Yeah, I have got to figure out the West. That's going to be a tough call.
Yeah, and I mean, it would be nice for Purdue to win the West because I kind of feel like they're Notre Dame's little brother in a sense. And because
they play in the same state?
Yeah, because they play in the state. And they both wear gold.
No.
I
don't know that I can accept that. I think you need to join the conference before you can make any claims like that. When you talk big brother, little brother, Alabama, Auburn, Michigan State, there's a few others out there, Oregon State. You can't lay claim to that. If you're not going to join the family,
all right,
how do you claim the big brother role?
All right, fair.
Okay. And you're an only child right now, is what you are.
Sorry, I just love slandering the Big Ten. And with Penn State,
there's nothing wrong with that, of course. A lot of successful only children out there, but just again, sometimes gets lonely.
Do you feel like Manny Diaz will do you think he'll be a bit of a step down for Brent Pry?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Because I'm not trying to slam Manny, but was he that good with Miami as a defensive coordinator? I felt like he didn't achieve as much as people.
Well, I know that and I don't want to be misled, by Miami fans that, of course, think that they've got the best talent in the world sometimes, and then they can just go after teams. But he played a non-attacking style defense, kind of a read
Bend
react
not break.
is his deal. Yeah.
And I feel like because of that, like I really feel like even with Clifford back, I just feel like that they're a step behind Michigan and Ohio State. Just like especially losing Jahad Dotson, I feel like will hurt Clifford's ability to really like pull Penn State into contention with the Big Two.
As a program, I don't think they're behind Michigan, but yeah, this particular team
Yeah.
is probably behind Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
you're really making me think about my predictions coming up here in the next couple of weeks, because I want to be able to make
Mm-hmm.
not these standard predictions. I want to be able to be a forward thinking, ahead of the curve visionary that
Mm-hmm.
finds the couple teams out there that are going to do something different.
And I was watching Steve Daish's show, Bigger Ten Show, and I felt like it was shocking that they said Maryland was. So they went to Nebraska, Northwestern, Illinois, Rutgers, and Maryland, and they said Maryland was by far the best team that they've seen so far. And I just really do not think that's a good look for Scott Frost heading into a do or die season.
So when you say the best that they've seen,
that they've been
talking about the Big Ten tour on the Big
tour,
Ten Network.
The tour, yeah.
Okay, you're confusing me with Steve Dace and the Big
I'm
Ten
sorry.
Network.
Sorry, I'm not trying to do that.
All right. We would love to see Steve Dace on the Big Ten Network, just so he continues to interact with me. That would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
But between Maryland, Rutgers, Indiana, and who?
Maryland, Rutgers, Illinois, Northwestern, in Nebraska. So they had the 3 week zero teams: Illinois, Nebraska, Northwestern.
Sure.
And I think Illinois, no, not Illinois, Rutgers and Maryland were the 5 teams that they saw. And they said Maryland was by far the best team out of those 5. That's not looking good for Scott Frost.
I wouldn't necessarily put them that far ahead of Nebraska, but
they said just from like how they looked, I think, in camp.
Sure.
But like, do you think that? Because I feel like Scott Frost is either going to go 3-9 or 8-4. I think
no, it's not going 3-9. It's almost impossible against that schedule to go 3-9.
Well, or like I guess like I don't know, 4.
They've got 2 wins out of conference against Georgia Southern and somebody.
Yeah,
that's yeah.
But like, I feel like it's just like I don't know. I feel like Nebraska, they're either gonna go like 4-8, I guess, or they're gonna go 8-4. Like I feel like there's not. I feel like because the players that they have, they should be a good Big Ten team. Like the players that they brought in, they should
be okay. Yeah,
they should be able to compete for a Big Ten West title. But I feel like the culture is just so awful there. Like, because culture does matter. Like, I feel like comebacks can happen because of culture, and I feel like, and like wins, like they can have like a gritty win, like a character win. I just feel like every time Nebraska like fell short, that was a part of it. I don't know if you agree.
Oh, I hear you. Their morale needs a turnaround. They need to have something break their way against a decent team to show, okay, this isn't going to happen to us again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can make fun of Nebraska or put narratives on their demise and their countless string of losses in the clutch, and you can size it up about 50 different ways, and I have through the years. So many different ways. When I think about, like, when you just think about special teams, very first drive of the season last year, they try to field a punt at the half-yard line, and it turns into a safety, and then they kick a short field, and before you know it, Illinois is up 9-0, and they're losing to a team that they should beat, and they lose the game. They end the season. They're beating Iowa by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and they get a punt blocked, and Iowa comes back with 3 touchdowns and beats them. In the middle of the season, I don't know how a team loses a game in which they don't give up a first down in the second half, but they give up they're beating Michigan State on the road with like 2.5 minutes left in the game. They give up a punt return for a touchdown and lose the game. It's inconceivable how they lose games.
Who would be your first call if you are Nebraska, though? Like, I mean, just with the coaches that are like and coordinators that are available now, who would you call first if you're the AD?
Oh, if Frost gets fired?
Yeah.
Nebraska. It's a tough place to win. It's a tough place because the expectations are high. The place is going to be sold out, and they don't have players in the state or around the state. They got to go to Texas or somewhere. Mike Riley tried to go to California all the time. Where would I go if I was Nebraska if Frost gets fired? Man. Man, that's a good question. I can't think of any group of 5 coaches right out of the gate who's coaching at San Diego State right? Oh, it's
Brady Hoke.
Brady Hoke. No, I don't want Brady Hoke. Doing a great job, but I don't want Brady Hoke. Who's a hotshot coordinator or a great G5 coach? I wonder if Brett Bielema would go to Nebraska.
You know, this is a little out of the ordinary, but the Houston coach that was at Texas, I can't think of his name. I might call him to try to recruit in Texas.
Tom Herman.
Yeah, or Tom Herman. I might go with him.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
That's a good call. I thought Tom Herman was going to do the job at Texas. And he did 1 year.
And another, do you think that Mike Loxley, do you think that there's any,
Brian Hartline.
Good call. I mean, if they can get him, I would take him as a head coach.
Jamie Chatwell, the Coastal Carolina coach. Yeah, making kind of that Billy Napier ascension. Yeah. Okay.
Do you feel like that Maryland can get a big win this year?
Urban Meyer's not going to Nebraska. He would hang up the phone. I just can't imagine. Do I think that who gets a big win?
Mike Loxley can get a win over the Big Four in the East.
He could. It would be Penn State most likely. He did a couple of years ago against them in the COVID season. Probably not.
I
Mike
feel like
Loxley's starting to change my mind, but I still don't know why he got hired. But he's starting to change my mind a little bit.
I would circle that Michigan State game with their passing attack and Michigan State's spotty secondary. I feel like that's a winnable game. I feel like he has just this with the styles. I feel like they have a shot at that. That's their best shot. I feel like it's a good matchup.
No, it's a good matchup. I think Michigan State's issues against the pass were a little overblown.
Yeah. That's true.
Like they gave up a lot of yardage to, let's say, Miami. But De'Ara King threw the ball 58 times and they gave up 17 points. They gave up a lot of
dink and dunk.
But they were not good against the pass. Absolutely. But the worst in the country? No, they weren't the worst in the country. They were statistically because they could stop the run, first of all, so nobody ran against them. And shoot, Ohio State just really, I know that's only one game in the books, but 49-0 at half. That's crazy. And Aiden O'Connell tore him up too.
Credit to Tuck, though, for getting his troops back together and winning that Penn State game, though. Because
absolutely.
Yeah, Scott Frost would never. No offense to Scott Frost, but.
No, got to call him like we see him.
Yeah. Do you feel like Indiana is going the way of Vanderbilt, like a couple good seasons and then just tank? Or do you feel like
Mm,
Tom Allen can turn it around and make it to a bowl game?
I think that he had a lot of things go against him. So we tend to write people off pretty quickly. He was going in the right direction. They had a lot of bad injuries. As of the second, third, fourth game in the season, whenever it was played, they were playing Cincinnati
Tough.
down to the last 4 or 5 minutes.
Mhm.
They were down by 6, fumbled the ball going in for a touchdown to take the lead.
Mm. That hurts.
You know, and then they just crumbled and got killed by everyone. Yeah, it's a big season for Tom Allen, but his recruiting is pretty good.
Mm.
He's been recruiting well. They just brought in what is one of their better classes ever.
Mm. And I'm excited to see like if Illinois can keep building too. Like it's nice to see. I mean, I guess they had a couple decent seasons under Lovie Smith, but I feel like I don't know. I'm a Brett Bielema fan, and I would like to see them get in a bowl as well.
Yeah. It's interesting to think that Illinois, and then they're tough. They're a tough watch. They can't
Mhm.
throw the ball. They look. You think you're watching 1978 Big Ten football when you're watching Illinois, but they beat Minnesota. They beat Penn State. They beat Nebraska.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty successful. When you say you like Brett Bielema, he can coach.
I just remember how bad a 2015 Iowa Wisconsin game was to watch. That game was, oof.
Oh, 2015 Iowa Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not recalling that game right off the top of my. Was that the Josh Jackson 3 picks in a game, or two pick sixes or something?
And Wisconsin dropped the ball in the end zone for a chance to win. It was like right to him, and they dropped it.
Okay. Okay, Will.
All right.
Anything else, man?
I can't think of anything else to say,
Okay.
but fun show. I enjoy talking Big Ten just for the banter. So
Yes. And possibly fantasizing about a role in the Big Ten, membership to the Big Ten for the Fighting Irish.
you can keep dreaming, Mark. But
Okay.
all right.
Come on in. It would be phenomenal. Think about those matchups. It'd be phenomenal.
All right.
All right, Will. Have a good one.
Have a good one. Join the Discord, everyone. Join the Discord.
That's right. Join the Discord. You can talk to Will all the time. Join the Discord. Go to Patreon, Mark Rogers TV. Bam.
Bam.
Thanks, Will.
All right. Bye.
Jordan Bowman's here. Jordan, I didn't intend on, we had a little double switch there, so it brought you in. Give me just 2 seconds here. Want to recognize this super chat here. Uncle Rico. Of course, we didn't forget you, Uncle Rico. Where did you move, Mark? Were you kidnapped? Witness protection? The answers to those questions would be yes, no, and no. Witness protection? Well, I'm here all the time. Witness protection would be I'm in front of a blank wall, or I disappeared for 3 weeks or something like that. That does not happen. Also, everybody, when you join Discord, you can talk to Jordan here all the time. He's on Discord. Right. We appreciate Jordan being there, talking Discord. We got about 65 people on there. So let's go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, sign up there. Jordan, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Mark. I have been perusing Twitter the past couple of days. I probably shouldn't, but I've seen some pretty incredible takes, and I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on this, because I've said this on some other streams, but I'm really high on the ACC's crop of quarterbacks this year. I said I said the ACC has the best group of quarterbacks. I said it in some, I can't even remember now, but I said it in some chat, and I got ridiculed for it. And I just wanted to know your thoughts. Do you think the ACC has the best quarterbacks this season, top to bottom?
All right. The ACC last year, without a doubt, had the best quarterback league in the country. Not even close. Best. We can run them down. So if you're not familiar, anyone, look at the quarterbacks in the ACC. Phenomenal. Okay. Lost Sam Howell, lost Kenny Pickett. Those were the two big losses. Am I missing anyone? Those two, that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's it. All right. I would say I saw a comment on the ACC kickoff on the ACC network during the media day. They call the ACC kickoff that somebody there, and I tweeted this out because I saw somebody initiate a conversation that said the ACC by far had the best quarterbacks in college football. And I went, hang on. The SEC, Bryce Young, Hendon Hooker, Stetson Bennett, Anthony Richardson. If Jaden Daniels wins the job,
Will Levis,
Will Rogers.
yeah. He put a
So
phenomenal number.
I still believe that the ACC does have the best quarterback league in the country, but it's not. I think the SEC is really good too. Those are the two best. But yes, the ACC is the best quarterback league in the country.
And I mean, if you look at the history of the ACC, whenever they've had like a phenomenal, like a great season, like you look back at like that 2016 season, it's always been, the ACC has always been a quarterback driven league. And so, that just the way this season is kind of setting up, I told people, I was like, I think the ACC is going to have a better year than maybe some people are expecting them. I think it's going to be a better conference. I mean, I think in the coaches poll that it already has the second most preseason top 25 teams. And I kind of expect it to have a similar number, when the AP poll comes out. I mean, obviously the games have to be played, but I'm really, I think there's a lot of teams that are trending upwards in the league right now. I mean, if you look at the Atlantic, I think the Atlantic is one of the best divisions in football, going into this year. I think losing Sam Hartman at Wake kind of probably hurts that narrative a little bit, but I'm really high on the conference as a whole. I think, Louisville is as up and down as Satterfield's tenure has been. I think that, they're kind of trending upwards. I think they're due for a big season. I think this is probably Satterfield's best team. Obviously NC State with Devin Leary is they're primed to, challenge Clemson for the division. And then, Boston College is a sleeper. They get Phil Dracovic back, who, missed a lot of last season. And, they also bring back Zay Flowers. So Syracuse, as far as bottom teams in the conference go, is not terrible. So I don't know. I think this, if you look at the other side on the Coastal, if Miami is what they should be, looking at what they have, at quarterback and, some of the pieces surrounding him and Pitt, I still expect, I think a lot of people are down on Pitt. I'm not. I think, defensively, they're going to be pretty stacked this year. It just depends on that offense. I think they'll be able to run the ball better. They return their entire offensive line. So I think Pitt's still going to be a tough out in that division. And then North Carolina is probably a team that people have just kind of tossed by the wayside, but I'm kind of higher on that team than a lot of people. I think we might have been a little too early, premature on some of those preseason, hype talks. But I don't know. I think this conference as a whole, in a time when it really needs it, is about to boost its profile a little bit, because I think this is going to be a pretty competitive season for the league. I don't know what you think.
I do think that the ACC, based on geography, should be the second best conference in college football.
Probably.
It's in the South. It's founded, in Florida with two schools, and obviously the Carolinas with most of the conference in the Carolinas, and the Mid-Atlantic is strong with Virginia and the DMV and the football that's played there in high school. That it should be the second best conference just based on recruiting footprint. The Northeast is a bit rough, Syracuse, BC, etc. But the majority of the conference is in much better position, let's say, than the Big Ten. But And I thought, Jordan, to your point, in 2016, you bring up 2016, I thought that that the SEC was still the best conference, but
Quality
that
of players, all that. Yeah.
the ACC actually in 2016 played better, had better results, had a better postseason. With of course Clemson winning, Florida State won a major bowl. I think that a 10-3 postseason record for the ACC and played a tremendous non-conference schedule and won a lot of games in the regular season. And since then, of course, the biggest issue with the conference has been Florida State's demise more than anything.
Yes.
You know, Miami, you could point to Miami, but they weren't any good at that point anyway, and haven't been since 04, 05 in that range. And again, Miami fans are going to, like, I'm not talking 2017, yes, 1 year, but basically, and they were okay.
Yeah, that team wasn't as great as the top 10 ranking they had.
No,
they
not at all.
escaped a lot of games. They scraped by.
Absolutely. So it's been mostly Florida State's been the culprit. And like you say, NC State's, if you're talking about really taking the ACC over the top, sure, BC's can, I agree with your analysis across the board. BC, Louisville, all of those could be really nice teams that are tough to play, teams you wouldn't want to play, teams that could go 8-4 range. But I think NC State, Miami, those are the two teams that could really push the conference this year.
Yeah, and to your point, NC State, you know, I've had my qualms with that program in the past as a Clemson fan, but I mean they've kind of been, you know, under Dave Doran, they've just kind of been that. I don't know, they haven't really had an identity. It seems like just, you know, they'd have an upswing year, they'd always reach that 8-9 win mark and never really, hit that, that 10 win, really challenge for the division type level. And then they had that 4-8 season a couple of years ago. It's just been a lot of up and down. I know you've been critical of Dave Doran in the past, but I think some people are questioning the hype that NC State is getting, and I question it to a certain degree, but I do think this is his best team that he's had since he's been there. Just looking at what he's bringing back on both sides of the ball, and I think Devin Leary is better than any quarterback he's had, better than Ryan Finley and guys like that. I think Leary is a legitimate first, second round quality quarterback, and they have some really talented pass catchers. The offensive line, I know they lose Ike Ekwonu, but they bring back 4 of those 5 starters, and they look to be solid on both sides of the ball. That defense is probably the second best in the conference. If you don't, Pitt might have something to say about that, but I do think this is their best team, and it's going to be really interesting. I think Clemson and NC State, they play week 5. I think I think it's something like that, week 5 at Clemson. I do think that's going to, whoever wins that game is winning the conference. Now, not just the division, but winning the conference. But
yep, I would tend to agree. And back to the quarterback conversation, you brought up Hartman. I was kind of discounting that. That would bring things a little bit closer. Obviously, that's a huge blow to Wake. And like I've made the point several times in the last few days, I think that might be the most difficult injury for any team in the country to take. I would include Brennan Armstrong with Virginia, because are there better quarterbacks? Yeah, there's a few, but in terms of a quarterback-driven team, I don't know if it gets any more so than Wake and Virginia.
Yeah. And the guy they have starting has thrown, I think he's been there. He's been in the what's his name? Griffiths.
Yeah,
Mitch Griffiths. I remember he threw a touchdown against Clemson in that COVID opener in 2020. But other than that, I think he has like 300 career passing yards or something like that. So it's a tough look, and it's really disappointing, because I really like what Wake has at receiver. A.T. Perry is phenomenal. I think a name a lot of people don't know is Donovan Green. He missed a lot of the year last year, all of last year. So I think this was a really I don't know if Wake was going to improve on what they did last season, but I think they had a lot of potential. So yeah, it sucks to lose a guy like Hartman for the year. We don't know. It's indefinitely, so he might return, but it's still, that's a tough blow to the division and to the conference as a whole. So I guess you need one of those unknowns at quarterback to step up. Maybe if you want that, if you want to hold up the narrative that the ACC has, the best crop of quarterbacks, you're going to need, one of those lesser known to step up, or even one of the more known ones that has not played up to his potential in DJ.
Yeah.
So
DJ, Jeff Sims. Yeah.
Jeff Sims. Oh man. I forget about Jeff Sims sometimes, but he's like, you watch him on film and he's like, you see the physical, talent, the ability. And it's just, I don't know if that system is, really working for him. And he really doesn't have a whole lot of talent around him, especially now that Gibbs is gone. So it seems like kind of a sinking ship at Georgia Tech right now with Jeff Collins.
Right, Jordan. Well, it was good to see you and hear from you tonight. Thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Mark.
Have a good night.
All right, you too.
All right. That was going to be the last call. We'll take a quick one from Hunter. Hunter, what you got tonight?
Hey, Mark. How you doing?
I'm good. What's up?
Good. Let me ask you this. Who do you think will be a dark horse team in the Big Ten this year?
Well, it depends what you consider a dark horse. Do you consider Penn State a dark horse?
Not really, because they've had success over the last
Okay.
season or two.
Is Minnesota a dark horse?
Yeah, yes, they would be. It would be.
Okay. They would be the one.
Over Nebraska?
Who was better last year, Minnesota or Nebraska?
Yeah, Minnesota, but I think that there was just so many times where I watched Nebraska where last year when I'm like, it's right in front of them, they can just reach out and grab it. And I think some of that was due to the offensive staff last year and Martinez being inconsistent, and so I don't know. I really want Nebraska to be good. I guess that's why I'm always kind of rooting for them.
Okay. I'll say Nebraska then. We'll go with you on that one, Hunter.
One more thing. As you look around this year, as like not just in college football in general, do you see do you think that everything that's going over the last few months, how big of an impact do you think that's going to have? Is it going to start this season that we'll start seeing an impact on some of these things, or do you think that'll be a season or two away?
What are we talking about? Are we talking about TV deals? Are we talking about NIL? Are we talking about realignment? What are we talking about? Things that have happened in the last few months.
Kind of all of it combined.
Well, the realignment, obviously, that's not going to have an impact on anything except for possibly recruiting for certain teams until those teams leave the league. But those are going to have recruiting implications. Like, for example, it was stated at Pac-12 Media Days the other day. I'm watching Pac-12 Media Days, and they make the comment, the Pac-12 commissioner makes the comment that USC and UCLA leaving will only open up a void that other teams from the Pac-12 can go and get those great California players. And I'm like, okay, that's a snow job. That's wrong. That's not correct. What that is left is that, yes, the 3 stars that go to USC and UCLA and play on special teams and play backup roles, yes, they may opt to go to Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, probably those last 2 more so. But no, the 4 and 5 stars in California and Southern California, they're not going to Washington State. They're not going to Stanford. that's a bad example because you need the grades to go to Stanford. They're going to be going to the SEC or going to play at Notre Dame or Ohio State or somewhere. This is not helping the Pac-12. Those California players are gone, the good ones. So there's an issue right there. I would expect more Southern California players to be, and maybe they'll stay. Maybe USC and UCLA, and especially USC, can take advantage and keep them there because they'll be less likely to leave playing in one of the two top conferences rather than playing in the Pac-12.
Do you think that it made sense that having okay, so for first example would be in the SEC where Texas and Oklahoma go into the SEC as a but USC and UCLA, it wouldn't have made really sense for one to go without the other. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I think if you have like in the instance of Texas and Oklahoma going to SEC, you know that's a big rivalry, and you would want them to be in the same conference. It makes it a little bit more exciting due to some of the conference championship implications, and so you think that's sort of the same thing with the UCLA and USC move? You think it would have made sense one without the other?
Yeah, we think of it in terms of rivalries, and certainly that's a big consideration, but it's even more so from the standpoint of having a partner in terms of the lower income sports, non-revenue sports, because of scheduling and for a zillion different reasons in regards to the institutions and the networking and all of that.
Yeah. I'm nervous, but but part of me thinks that all of this won't be as bad as some people are making it out to be. Maybe I'm wrong, but
So those people that say that it's going to be bad, I need a description on bad. What does bad mean?
I think they just mean I think that they just think that it's going to be bad for the sport overall, and that it might it's gonna turn into something that we don't recognize anymore.
Oh, well, we're going to recognize the first Saturday of September. We're going to recognize guys are going to be in uniforms hitting each other. That's not going to change. Yeah, I don't mean to make light of it because I've talked about it. I don't like what it's doing to college football either from a conference standpoint and rivalry standpoint and tearing up the fabric of what we know these conferences to be. And the personality and the character of the conferences, because as I've stated many times, whether it's the SEC, the Big Ten, the Pac-12, whatever it is, it also represents an area of the country. And the area of the country is defined by certain values, by music, by food, by the way people, the type of jobs they have, all that sort of thing. And that's being obliterated. But once the games are on the field, we may actually have better matchups.
And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that through all of this, that we come out with a what I'd like to see happen is we come up with a better scheduling system, and two, we get to see more games that everybody wants to see.
There you go. Well,
All
Hunter,
right.
I appreciate you being here tonight. Call back anytime as always.
Yeah, I know I called in late. Y'all I realized that you were, I mean, going for almost 2.5 hours when I called. So
Yeah.
well,
that was not even counting the hour and a half before that. So thanks, Hunter. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
All right. Lemansky. Encourage all to listen to South Carolina's Shane Beamer talk to his team at the top of his stadium. You just did. Thanks, Lemansky. Thank you for the super chat. For those super chat contributions, we will encourage all sorts of different things. Mostly, though, what we will encourage people to do is to follow the instructions of not Shane Beamer, but Exploring with Ben and Sam. Join Mark on Patreon. There you see the link right there, patreon.com// Is that a backslash or a slash? That's a backslash. Mark Riders TV. $5 a month. That's did the math once. 16 cents per day. And we did not raise the rate based on inflation. So the 20% inflation that's hit the renter's market and your food prices and gas, of course, it's all about gas. Gas has raised all the other prices of everything else pretty much. In the housing market, yes. Home construction, wood, plaster, all that stuff. Inflation. We are inflation proof at the Voice of College Football. We stayed at 5 per month. And yes, we affectionately call them the knuckleheads, 24/7, 365 chat right there. We heard from Jordan tonight. Jordan was the very astute Clemson/ACC fan who jumped on a few calls ago. He's on Discord. Will, Notre Dame fan, Discord. Tim, Discord. Exploring with Ben and Sam, Discord. Ronan's over there. J-Dub's over there. All sorts of good people over there. Don't want to miss anyone. So Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV. I will send you a link as soon as I see the email go through. We'll send you a link with the Discord link. And guess what? On Patreon, we have completely bypassed all the Patreon benefits for the Discord and other things we've got planned for the Discord, rewatch parties and the like. And they've got after show parties over there as well. I got to say, I'm about toast. What I really want is some late night junk food, and I don't have any, and I can't go get any. I don't know where I got to go to some like convenience store, but I don't need it. I certainly don't need it, because my attempt is all the time to be like, Mark, I'm going to cut out the sugar, and man, I'm going to get cut up, and man, sweet tooth though, sweet tooth. And I just downed a whole large party-sized pack of Chips Ahoy in the last couple of days. And so I got nothing in the house, but I've got a lot of like good food to cook, but I don't want to cook. Why'd I get off on that? Anyway, yes, Mark Rogers TV on Patreon. Yeah, but you get my picks on Patreon as well. And I'm going to tout them as just about as good as you're going to find anywhere. So I got to pull through this season, I guess. But I guess on the other hand, I'm bound to have a bad season at some point, but I've been able to avoid that. So we'll see how the picks are. And of course, we're going to have our picks on the season coming up soon. And I know I need mods in here. We've got like 11 or 13 mods. They just don't show up. So I guess I got to give mod functionality permissions to others, because we've got like 13 mods. They just don't show up. All right. Great to have everybody here. It's time when I'm losing my voice. So Saturday is going to be the SEC preview. So be here. And we've got some great initiatives coming your way. I've been asked to do a certain initiative, had a company contact me, so we're going to go off, and I don't want to announce it quite yet until we know exactly what it's going to be named and what it's going to involve, but we've got something brewing there. And then what was the other thing? Oh yeah, got a great idea for another. It's either going to be a weekly live stream or it's going to just be a segment, a video that I deliver each week. But got a good, it's time to hold some people accountable. So we're going to get on that soon. All right. Exploring with Ben and Sam. Thank you so much for reminding everyone. Get on in the Discord. And for the rest of you, we will see you tomorrow night for the SEC preview show right here at the Voice of College Football. In the meantime, subscribe. Oh, LSU and Florida are like in the 920s. We would love to get to 1,000. You get to 1,000, YouTube says basically, we're going to push your videos out now in traffic. We're going to give you a shot. You've been around 1,000 subs. Boom. Florida and LSU are in the 920 range. So please, LSU and Florida fans and SEC fans and just people, if you want to succeed here at the Voice of College Football, subscribe to LSU, Florida, and even more importantly, the Discord. See you on Saturday. Time to be announced SEC preview.